Everyone has heard of Florida, but hardly anyone really knows it, because when the conversation starts, it's always the same. Disney, Miami, outlet stores, parks, crowded beaches. It's the basic Florida, the one that comes ready-made in the travel agency brochure, with a fixed itinerary and step-by-step instructions. What no one talks about is the rest. The cities that no one can even pronounce, the deserted islands that can only be reached by seaplane, the ghost towns of the 19th century, the reefs that make Cancún look like a hotel pool. There are places there where tourists don't go, because they don't even know they exist. Forget the touristy spots, the selfie spots, the places that have been on Instagram 1,000 times. In today's Bello Mundo, we're going behind the scenes, to the hidden corners of Florida that even locals are amazed to discover. And that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the most underrated state in the United States. Number 10. Wikiwatchi Springs. Few people know, but there is a place in Florida where mermaids are not party costumes or a theme park attraction. It's a profession, and an old one at that. Wikiwatchi Springs is one of those places that seems to have been forgotten by time, and perhaps that is why it has survived. It is located in the interior of the state, in the Spring Hill region, in a spot that has nothing to do with traditional tourist routes. There, the attraction is not state-of-the-art toys, but a crystal-clear spring where women dressed as mermaids have been performing underwater since the 1940s. The park's structure is simple. It has an underwater theater built into the spring itself, where the audience watches the shows through windows. The mermaids dance, swim, and perform acrobatics. All right there, under the fresh water that gushes from the ground with enough force to form an entire river. And the most impressive thing is that, even with all its eccentricity, Wikiwatchi has not become a meme. It remains a family outing, with hiking trails, kayaking, giant floats on the Wikiwatchi River, and a tranquility that seems to ignore the outside world. It's the kind of place that no one puts on their itinerary, but those who know it never forget it. Number 9. Anamaria Island. Leaving the fresh waters of the springs, our next stop is a true tropical paradise very close to Tampa. Anamaria Island is the kind of place that doesn't appear in travel agency windows, but everyone who sets foot there once swears they'll return. The island is located in the Gulf of Mexico, connected to the mainland by small bridges, with no airport, no major avenues, and no skyscrapers. And perhaps that is precisely what preserves the charm of the place. When you arrive, you can feel it. The pace changes, the rush disappears. The sound of cars gives way to the sound of the wind and seagulls. The beaches are wide, with soft white sand, clear, calm waters, and a clean look. There is no loud music, no shouting vendors, no excessive infrastructure. In Anamaria, you are invited to slow down, walk barefoot, eat fresh fish at a wooden table, and leave the beach only when the sky begins to change color. Pine Avenue, the main street, is almost a summary of the island. Small, with little shops selling a little bit of everything, a family restaurant, a local bakery, and bicycles leaning against the door. Nothing there seems set up for tourists, but everything works as if it were. Those looking for excitement will be disappointed, but those seeking peace will find the right place, and it is precisely this contrast that makes Anamaria worth a visit. Number 8. Dry Tortugas National Park. If Anamaria seems calm, Dry Tortugas goes even further. Now the journey continues out to sea, far from bridges, highways, or cities. The destination is an isolated archipelago in the Gulf of Mexico, accessible only by boat or seaplane from the southernmost tip of Florida, where Key West is located. It is there, after almost 2 hours of crossing, that an unlikely image appears. A gigantic 19th century fort stands in the middle of the sea, surrounded by clear waters, white sand, and small islands covered with vegetation. This is Fort Jefferson, a military construction that was never used as planned, but has survived the passage of time as one of the most impressive sights in the state. This part of Florida is part of a national park. There are no conventional tourist facilities, no lines, no shops. It's the kind of destination where there are no restaurants, no shops, no beach chairs, no umbrellas. Visitors who want to stay longer need to bring everything with them, including food. In exchange, they will find deserted beaches, diving with incredible visibility, and nature that follows its own rhythm, without haste and without an audience. It is the kind of place that no one discovers by accident, and those who make the crossing quickly understand why it was worth it. Number 7. Key West. After crossing the sea to the dry Tortugas islets, the return route makes a mandatory stop in the last city in Florida, before the ocean takes over completely. Key West is the end of the road that crosses the Florida Keys archipelago, a chain of small islands connected by bridges, curving down until it reaches the end. The city has an old-fashioned feel. Wooden houses, porches with rocking chairs, bicycles left in the shade, and guinea fowl crossing the street as if they were part of the decor. It looks like a Caribbean village where someone pressed the pause button. Time runs differently there. Anyone who has been to Key West remembers it for Hemingway. And for those who don't know the name, Ernest Hemingway was one of the most famous writers of the 20th century. He lived there in the 1930s, in a house that is now a museum and still home to 56 toed cats. All are descendants of a feline with this genetic anomaly, given to Hemingway decades ago. But the city has much more to offer. In a quieter corner, hidden from the tourist trails, is the Lazy Way Ranch, a rustic wooden space that looks just like a ranch. Live music, hammocks, cold beer, and the kind of conversation that only exists in a city that takes its time. And when the sun starts to set, everything stops. Mallory Square, a square facing the sea, becomes a meeting point. People from all over the world gather there to watch the sunset as if it were a show. There are jugglers, musicians, craft sellers, dogs performing tricks. But the focus is on the sky. When the sun touches the water, the audience applauds, and no one thinks it's exaggerated. Key West isn't big, but it has everything: sea, history, eccentricity, calm, and a strange feeling that if you stayed there forever, the world wouldn't miss you. Number 6. Jinny Springs. Back on the mainland, the road now heads north. Away from the coast, bridges and boats, the landscape changes again. Salt gives way to fresh water, and what appears is one of Florida's best-kept secrets, Jinny Springs. The place is in a more remote area, near the town of High Springs, where everything still has a country feel. It is a complex of natural springs that looks like a made-up setting. The water is so clear that you can see the bottom without effort. And the most impressive thing is that it gushes out of the ground with force, forming rivers that run through the forest. But what draws the most attention in Jinny is not just the color of the water, it's what's underneath it. There are some of the most famous underwater caves in the world, a system of limestone tunnels that stretches for several kilometers. Certified divers can go in and disappear for hours, exploring dark, silent paths with the muffled sound of someone in another world. For those who prefer to stay closer to the surface, there are also floats down the river, kayaks, free swimming, and a picnic area. Everything has that atmosphere of a place that has always been the same. No filters, no frills. That's Jinny Springs, a stretch of river that hides a whole universe, and even with all its apparent beauty, it keeps the best underground. Number 5. Amelia Island. In the far northeast corner of Florida, almost touching Georgia, there is an island that lives on the edge between the known and the forgotten. Many people have heard of it, but few actually stop to take a closer look. And those who do quickly understand why Amelia Island has appeared on the list of the world's best, according to Condé Nast readers. The curious thing is that it delivers everything that trendy destinations promise, only without the fanfare. It has wide beaches, calm seas, protected dunes, horses at the water's edge, and even shark teeth hidden in the sand. But it also has history, and not just a little. The place has changed hands more than 7 times, is home to Florida's oldest bar, a century-old lighthouse still in operation, and a historic neighborhood with 50 entire blocks preserved. In Fernandina Beach, the center of the island, you can walk along brick streets, visit shops that still close early, and chat with people who know every house in the neighborhood. This is where you'll find the Amelia Island Museum of History, housed in a former jail, which tells the whole story. From the Timucua people to pirates, from European colonizers to Civil War soldiers. And if you follow the itinerary correctly, there is a mandatory stop at American Beach, which was a refuge for black families during the segregation era. Today, it is a historic landmark and the starting point of the Florida Black Heritage Trail, complete with a museum and living memory. With over 100 local restaurants, 20 kilometers of coastline, a bike path cutting through the forest, a state park with horses on the sand, fishing, kayaking, festivals, dunes, trails, and peace and quiet. It has the infrastructure for celebrities, but it is families who enjoy it the most. And those who arrive without high expectations leave wondering why no one told them about it before. Number 4. Crystal River. In the middle of the state, between the Gulf Coast and inland Florida, there is a small town with a beautiful name and discreet fame, Crystal River. And the name does not deceive. The water there is really transparent. But what makes this place unique is not just the view. It is the people who live there quietly, at the bottom of the river. Crystal River is the only place in Florida where you can legally swim with manatees in their natural habitat. It's not a staged attraction. It's not a tank. It's not a zoo. It's nature at its finest. The animals live there year-round, but in winter, things really heat up. When the sea temperature drops, hundreds of them take shelter in the region's warm springs, transforming the river into an aquatic sanctuary. The town revolves around this. There are kayak operators, guided tours, snorkel rentals, and also observation areas for those who prefer not to get in the water. The rules are strict, respect is mandatory, but what you see there cannot be found anywhere else. The manatees move slowly at their own pace, and anyone who is close by quickly understands that it is not the visitors who are in charge. Besides that, Crystal River also has underwater caves, trails, a wildlife refuge, and a pace that seems to be in no hurry to keep up with the rest of the state. It's a small town with a big sense of responsibility, and if there's one thing that defines Crystal River, it's this. Here, the show isn't put on for you. You're just lucky enough to witness it. Number 3. Biscayne National Park. There in South Florida, close to Miami, there is a national park that few people know about. And it's not because it's far away. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It starts almost in the city's backyard, but it doesn't appear in hotel brochures or package deals. That's because it's mostly water. Biscayne National Park is one of the few national parks in the United States that is basically submerged. More than 90% of the protected area is under the sea, and what's down there is what makes this place so rare. one of the last preserved stretches of coral reefs on the Atlantic coast, along with shallow bays, mangrove islands, and marine life that still manages to stay away from destruction. The only way to visit is by boat. Most tours depart from Homestead, a small town south of Miami. Within the park, two islands are usually the most popular: Elliott Key and Boca Chica Key. Both are isolated with no modern buildings, almost deserted beaches, and space for camping. Some people spend the night there with just a tent, a flashlight, and the sound of the sea. It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's true. Staying on a deserted island just a few miles from one of Florida's largest cities is an experience you'll never forget. And if you dare to dive, the park offers a spectacular show. Turtles, barracudas, schools of colorful fish, coral caves, shipwrecks covered with life. All there, underwater, protected as if it were a secret. Biscayne is one of the most precious pieces that Florida has managed to preserve. Number 2. Maka State Park. No sea, no buildings, no city. Here, the wilderness, wildlife, and silence reign supreme. This park is located in the southwest of the state, in a region close to Sarasota, a medium-sized city between Tampa and Fort Myers, known for its beaches and quieter cultural life. But Maka is nothing like that. It is far from the hustle and bustle, within one of Florida's largest nature reserves, with more than 20,000 hectares of protected area. The terrain mixes open fields, pine forests, extensive rivers, and wetlands. The view is raw but fascinating. There are dirt trails, a suspended walkway in the middle of the forest, and an observation tower that allows you to see the entire park from above. An endless green patch crossed by water and sun. Those who walk around there won't take long to find alligators. They are everywhere. Sometimes they are very quiet. Sometimes they cross your path. The park is also home to more than 300 species of birds, as well as deer, otters, turtles, and all kinds of wildlife that roam freely there. It's a place to take your time and enjoy. Nothing has been tamed. There's no background music, no guides telling jokes. It's nature at its best, and anyone who enters must respect that. Maka doesn't do marketing, and maybe that's why it's more impressive than many popular destinations. Number 1. Rainbow Springs State Park. We started with mermaids, then went to an island, a fort, a swamp, a ranch, and a hidden river. And to finish off this tour, what better place than one that brings together all the best Florida has to offer in one package? That place is called Rainbow Springs, a park that doesn't have to try hard to impress. There are no tricks, no exaggeration. It just delivers exactly what it promises: clean water, dense forest, accessible trails, ancient history, and a structure that works. This is where the Rainbow River, one of the clearest and most beautiful rivers in the state, begins. The water has a crystal blue hue that needs no filter. The current is gentle, the bottom is visible, and the route is an invitation for those who enjoy floating on a tube or kayaking in silence, surrounded by dense forest and open skies. In addition to the trails and swimming areas, there is also a curious detail. The park holds the remains of what was once a tourist attraction: a decommissioned zoo, a cable car that stopped in time, decorative sculptures hidden among the trees. It's like finding a forgotten memory in the middle of the woods. There are also archaeological remains, signs of human presence thousands of years ago. But the most impressive thing is that everything there still works, in a simple, straightforward way, without the need for spectacle. Rainbow Springs closes the list not because it is the most famous or the most touristy, but because it delivers everything a good destination should have, without fanfare. And in the end, maybe that's exactly what makes it so special. And so we come to the end of our adventure through the best tourist spots in Florida. As you can see, the state offers much more than the obvious destinations that everyone knows. Which of these destinations piqued your curiosity the most? Have you visited any of them, or do you have other secret places in Florida to share? Leave your experiences and discoveries in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip through Florida's hidden treasures, don't forget to subscribe here at Bello Mundo and activate the bell so you don't miss our next videos. Thank you very much for joining us on this journey, and see you on our next adventure.